It's Friday, September 12th, coming up live on The View. Republican presidential nominee Senator John McCain is making a campaign stop live on The View and answering every question you want answers to.
I really didn't want to go and see John McCain at The View. I'm a Democrat, part one. I don't agree with his politics, and I just was so excited about going to The View, and then I end up getting tickets for, him and his wife, the whole thing, the whole hour. It wasn't even just a few minutes here and a few minutes there. It was the whole show was dedicated to them.
That I'm the same person, and I have the same principles, and I have the same issues, whether it be spending, whether it be climate change, whether it be the conduct of the war in Iraq, whether it be torture of prisoners, no matter what it is, and fighting excess and wasteful spending. I'm the same guy.
Well, I thought that they were going to just give him soft questions. I thought it's going to be mainly Elizabeth talking, and it's not going to be anything hard. But it wasn't. They were like they went on him as soon as they started the show. They went straight into him with really hard questions, and I found that the audience were very quiet to start with, and then more as he spoke more and more, some of the questions that they asked him and the answers that he gave, they were booing, and and it was quite interesting watching the audience as well. They asked him a question about Roe versus Wade, and his answer to Roe versus Wade was, I don't know word for word, but it was, I think that the Roe versus Wade decision was a very big mistake. And the whole audience were like, are you kidding me that he just said that on live TV?
There's also a question that has been burning amidst voters, especially our viewers, and that is a question of Roe v. Wade. And as president, if you were, no softball coming from me, even though you have my vote, would you as president work to overturn that? And then would Sarah Palin be working to overturn Roe v. Wade?
I think what we'd be doing is appointing or nominating justices to the United States Supreme Court and other courts who strictly interpret the Constitution of the United States. We would not impose a litmus test on any issue, because that's not fair to the American people. But they would have to have a clear record of strict interpretation.
That's a kind of other way of saying people who would want to overturn Roe v. Wade.
That is saying that if I believe Roe v. Wade was a very bad decision, Barbara. I think it was a bad decision. But I've thought that others.
Well, when I went back and I watched the taping afterwards, I taped it at home and I watched it, and then I went online and I found that the comments that people were making online about it were the same as how I was feeling in the studio. Or maybe 85% of them were the same. They definitely, especially that particular point with the Roe versus Wade decision, the disgust of the audience was much, much louder in the studio. When I watched it on the tape, I was surprised on how muted the audience seemed. Well, Whoopi Goldberg spent the whole time, pouting. It looked like she didn't even want to be there. This was during the intervals in particular, the commercial breaks, when they weren't on camera. And even when they were on camera, she was just sitting there like almost looking around like she wasn't paying attention. Joy Behar reacted to the audience reacting to that comment that he made. She sort of like looked up and like sort of, moved back a little bit because of our reaction. And Barbara just sort of sat there. I wasn't really paying attention to the other two.
Yourself said the same thing about putting lipstick on a pig. You yourself used the same expression.
When I was talking about a health care plan.
Yeah, but he talked about change. He wasn't talking about Sarah Palin.
They were people just like me, age ranging from probably 19 to over 65. We're mainly women, but there were probably around, the audience I think is like 200. There was probably maybe 20 guys. 20, 30 guys. It was mostly white women, but there were maybe 15% were African American. Well, when I was waiting to go into the studios, I was talking to a few people, and a lot of people felt like I did. We wait all this time for these tickets, and we turn up, and we end up getting John McCain. But they also went. When we got in the studio, it seemed like more of them were Republicans and Democrats. But the reaction to some of the comments, especially the Roe versus Wade one, I think even the Republicans were reacting the same way as the Democrats. But everybody was loud, everybody was excited to be there, just because they were there. I don't think it was who he was. But I think that probably there were more Republicans there than there were Democrats. Well, I've watched The View before, and as I said, I thought that they were going to just, pussyfoot around him. And I was really shocked that they all of them, including Elizabeth, who is a big Republican. I was surprised on how they didn't. This wasn't a date. As I think, to quote Elizabeth, this wasn't a date that they were on. This guy is running to be the president of the United States, so they're not going to give him easy questions and questions that he, can answer like this. They were really going to give him questions that were hard, and you could see that. And the funny thing is when I got home, I was viewing the photographs. I took some still photographs during the commercials, and I played it on one of my softwares, and it came up with a song that happened to be in my iTunes library, and it happened to be Bad Day. And I was thinking, I had a really bad day, so I put these photographs to this, to this music, thinking, that I was the one that had the bad day. But then, actually, when I looked back at it, and I realized the reaction that the public were giving, and the television stations were giving, I think it was him more than me that actually had the bad day. Yeah, I put them up, and then I text the person that I was going with to say that I put them up, go check them out. And as I'm texting her, I'm looking at the screen, and it's on YouTube, and I'm getting 20 hits, 30 hits, 40 hits. In a minute and a half, I had something like 57 hits, and I thought there was something wrong with the computer screen, because I'm like, why am I getting all these hits? In a minute and a half, and now like 2-3 days later, I've got over 2,000 hits just on the photographs. Not on anybody talking, just on the photographs of that day and the music.
Say again, I am an imperfect person. No. And
the day was great. I learned a great deal about everything, not just, I'm glad I went. It wasn't something that, I wasn't going to go. I'm like, I'm not going. But I'm glad that I went for my education and just to see the whole process of what happened.